President Trump currently is visiting the UK. This comes at a time where the UK just about a week ago today, I believe, or maybe a week ago this weekend, held what ended up becoming a massive, what you could only describe maybe as the MAGA rally of the UK, where hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets, potentially millions, took to the streets in protest for their country. A very patriotic, I guess you'd say, moment as the country or the United Kingdom in general has faced a lot of pressure and a lot of unrest with what's going on there. I've spent a good amount of time there. We're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about it and what we're seeing right now. They had just it's a state visit. Will, this is something that happens every so often. They've been trying to get it handled. President Trump was just out there with King Charles in Windsor Castle, looking over bands, the royal bands that were playing. Neither of them looked all that entertained by it, but you know what? It is what it is. I'm sure those bands are fantastic, but you are sitting out there. It's evening time. It's a little bit chilly probably. It looks a little overcast. Looks very typical London right now.
Is his second. He had one during his first term. It's actually very rare for a president to have two state visits to the same nation. But this is something that King Charles...
Even 2 terms?
Yes, because it does. It's a big production. It takes a lot of planning, but it is a very rare thing to have two state visits to the same place. Now, this is a new king. This is King Charles. He went when it was Queen Elizabeth. And there is a lot of you could say, tension between the United States and the United Kingdom when it comes to some of the trade policy, things of that nature. A lot of it is made for TV. It's the pomp and circumstance, which President Trump loves. He loves the pomp and circumstance.
The razzle-dazzle.
He loves the history of the royal family and things of that nature. These are all public things. But
at one point, he was calling to rejoin the Commonwealth. Right. Maybe a few months ago, that we're all a little bit like, okay, man. I mean, I love the United Kingdom as well, but we gotta be careful.
But there's also the policy side where he'll be meeting with the Prime Minister and the different heads of state there as well to try and work on some of these trade issues, some of the tech issues, some of these partnerships. But it also is against this backdrop of a polarizing figure, especially in the United Kingdom, is arriving at the time that they are having, as you said, these kind of British MAGA type things happening where there's free speech, immigration, a lot of these issues that
a lot of the very same topics
that our American conservatives were concerned about that led to the election of President Trump are taking place in the background. It's got to be a very tense time for the leadership in England, but we can get into more of that as we go, and also what people think may come of this and what also people think may happen to one of our closest allies in Europe.
People on both sides of the aisle saying that the current government being run in the UK, the Stammer Prime Minister, is not what either the hardcore liberals want or the conservatives want. So you're about to see some major changes coming out of the UK. And look, I said this before. I know it's easy to think of the UK currently as like, a small country over there. It's fine. But like I said before, Brexit came before President Trump, the first term. And it was a big moment where the UK left the European Union, whether you liked it or not. And to me, I remember sitting there that day. I know exactly where I was with my friends and said, whoa, this is wild, and I bet this is going to indicate what the next few months may look like. They sent the the royal carriage. I mean, it is the pomp and circumstance. It is that almost. There always feels like a bit of Monty Python to it. Like there's a bit of comedy to when you see President Trump having to get in and out of these royal carriages with horse drawn and the beef feeders and all this. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. But I also, and look, as you said, it's needed right now, as the UK has certainly seen their country and their nation have a bit of unrest. All of the pomp and circumstance from the United Kingdom rolled out, essentially what you'd say the proverbial red carpet for President Trump. This is amid the backdrop of London being a city of unrest, as they have their own version of what you'd consider a MAGA movement happening, and it's happening in the streets again. It happened to coincide, sadly, with that tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk, which was a few days after it, but that became even more of a rallying. We talked to one of my friends who was there, who was at the protest, and he said, Charlie became the focus of this. It was run by a few different groups. By the way, different groups that were, some were conservative, some were certainly further to the right, were more considered, I guess you say, alt-right, and then some groups that were, there were Muslim groups there. There were other groups there, other religions represented, other people of ethnicities represented, because a lot of them immigrated to the UK to become part of Britain, become part of the culture there. And they saw what was happening, and then that part of Britain was slipping away and was changing. and changing rapidly. And that is what those protests were about. Now you have President Trump visiting the king, as he knows. He sees it. It's not like he doesn't have television, what's going on. You have their prime minister who is continually, when I was there back in July, that was maybe the number one topic was that prime minister even going to survive his current term, or whether he was going to be ousted. It could have been any day while we were there. That is the nature of, they said, the parliamentary government in the United Kingdom. We see a lot of the comments right now are people are going, oh, they're loving watching this with President Trump. They're loving the pageantry. They're loving the royal tradition, and that we're seeing this and it looks like a good thing for America. But we know sort of in the background, there is this heaviness that has come upon that nation right now. And we are seeing hundreds of thousands of people who have taken to the streets recently. But we've also seen that the country itself, the United Kingdom, is in a kind of a gut check moment where they're having to go, okay, well, who are we? What are we? What do we look like? Because the political spectrum there changes so rapidly. I think it's also, we kind of take for granted in America the fact that typically our president goes a full term. Maybe even 2 terms. We're in the UK and Israel and all these different places that are Western, if you will. It feels like it's flip-flopping every day. I mean, it's not every day, but like 3 times a season, if you will.
Well, and that's the difference in the parliamentary system versus our constitutional republic that we have.
I don't know.
But Jordan, even that case, I mean, President Trump is going there in the background for the British officials, which obviously have been planning this for months. This isn't like they decide all of a sudden to invite President Trump, but they are having a movement in their own country which would celebrate a figure like President Trump. Obviously, they have their own politics in the UK, so it's not a direct correlation, but it's a very Trump-style populist movement that's happening in the UK. And also on the backdrop of what happened in the United States, the freedom of speech that someone like Charlie Kirk utilized and took advantage of and was able to bring on debate is something they are trying to silence in the UK right now.
You could not have those discussions legally. I mean, a lot of what he was doing on those college campuses, you could have been arrested for doing and arrested for just having that open kind of dialogue, even in a more friendly setting, which Charlie Kirk was typically trying to create, by telling the crowd to quiet down if it was someone they disagreed with. But listen, we're kind of in a new moment right now. We know that Europe has been dealing with these issues. We now, as a country, are dealing with these issues. And I think that the important part is this. We, as a people, can regulate. Okay? That's not about laws. That's not about, criminal conduct or criminal speech. That's just how we interact, how we disagree. That's one thing. We do not want is our government becoming a speech police. And that doesn't mean that all speech, I think that people say, you can't incite violence. All speech cannot be protected, but most speech should be protected.